Hi everyone, I'm Anushree and I welcome you all to my first card making tutorial for Craft Angles design team. Today I'll be making 3 cards with Diwali as my theme. My major focus is going to be sharing some stencil techniques in all these cards, combining with stamps, texture paste and some embellishments. I'll be using these 3 stencils from Craft Angles along with this stamp set Diwali lantern and plain white 250 GSM notelets and the texture paste. Other items would be the blending brushes. So let's start the first card. I'm using the raised stencil along with my plain white 250 GSM paper. I have taken the texture paste on the side and mixing it with a yellow toned color. It could be any kind of liquid color, a mixed media color, a spray. Mix it up well. Let's put the stencil, let's place the stencil on the paper. I'm using a palette knife to apply the paste on the paper through the stencil. Off screen I completed putting it, and now you can even use a card, a plastic card, a gift card or something to apply the paste neatly. Time to remove the stencil. You can remove it slowly and neatly. This is how the texture paste looks like. Mostly it dries up fast, but if you are a bit more in rush, you can use a craft tool to dry it up. Next, I'm using Craft Angles cardstock along with small Ganesha stencil with a red tone distress ink. You can see how neatly my Ganesha has come out. Since the distress ink is a water-based ink, I'm drying it up with a heat tool. You can even dry it up at room temperature. Once it's all dried up, you can fussy cut it. Make sure the image is dried up fully before you are cutting it so that no smudges happen. I'll be placing my Ganesha image in the center of the panel. To do that, I'm using a foam tape so that the image pops out a bit. This is how it looks. Next is stamping the sentiment. I'm doing it on a separate sheet, the same cardstock, Craft Angles craft cardstock, and stamping it on a separate sheet. Then I'll be fussy cutting it. Stamping on the texture paste will not come out that neat, and that is why it's I would suggest to do it on a separate sheet and then adhere so that the neatness of the sentiment remains. It's cut now. You can adhere it using a clear glue. Right now I'm using a clear glue to adhere that. You can even use a foam tape to pop up the sentiment. This looks complete to me. Jumping on to the second card. I'm using ornamental lace stencil along with the blending brushes. My paper remains same, it's the plain white 250 GSM white paper. Let's start placing it. So I have decided to do it on the top and the bottom sides. I'm using Mermaid Lagoon Distress ink. But before doing that, make sure you are adhering the paper, the card base and the stencil neatly with a washi tape on the main base where you are doing it so that it doesn't move. You can use the blending brushes to do the stenciling very easily. Since this lace design has some sides and the design gets a bit complicated on the sides, I'm using a smaller blending brush to get the design neatly. If the design is not that complicated, you can always go on with just a single blending brush. So right now, rather than moving the stencil, I moved my paper and adhering it to the other side. I'll do the same process again using the blending brush, and on the sides, to get the neater image, neater stenciling, I'm using a smaller blending brush. Just remove the stencil and see how it has come out. This looks neat and nice to me. Stenciling is done and now it's time to do some stamping. I really like these small lanterns from DIWALI lantern stamp set. My top right has some white spaces, so I'll go ahead and do stamping on the top right corner of the card. Make sure you're cleaning your stamps before putting them back to the cover, plastic covers. You can use any microfiber cloth or whatever you wish looks comfortable to you, but cleaning is important. Let's stamp the sentiment now. I try placing it on the paper where I want the sentiment so that I can have a clear idea where I have to do the stamping. So the placement is decided beforehand. I do the bigger sentiment first and then go on to the smaller sentiment. The sentiments and the lantern part is done. Time to add some sequins and blinch to the panel. This particular design gives me enough space to add these sequins. I'm using a jewel picker to pick these sequins easily and then adhere. You can even use a tweezer to do the same thing. This set has different shades, so that gives me a lot of like freedom to apply the colors. This looks ready, and now the third one. This one too has stenciling as the major focus, but before that I have done some simple ink blending on the card base first. I'm using cracked pistachio, a very light toned green shade from Distress Ink on the panel. Because of the light effect right now, I think the color is not visible much, but it's very light toned. So that is why I moved on to a darker shade of green with the Distress Ink to apply it on all the sides, leaving the center a very light shade green and on the sides a dark tone. This is how my panel looks after applying 2 shades of green. To add more, you can even go on to add a darker shade of green on small amount of dark shade of green on the side. Now I've chosen this Ganesha stencil to be my center of the card, and I'm using a brown shade vintage photo Distress Ink color. I'm using the smaller blending brush for this. The stenciling comes out neat with Distress Inks if they are not very juicy. I'll add the sentiment first before adding the blinch part to this panel. I'll do it in the center. To add these sentiments, we can even go on adding it with a colored ink. Right now I've chosen it to do with a black ink. I'm adding these self-adhesive crystal stones on the side, so I do not want to cover the whole panel with it, only the right side and the left bottom side. So this much. My cards are ready and I have adhered it to their coordinating card bases. Hope you enjoyed the making and found the tutorial useful. See you next time with more inspiration. Till then, bye bye. Have a good day.